and welcome to Movie Masterminds. Today I'm joined by my dad and Zion. Today we will be reviewing Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League.
It's weird with the camera there. Okay, so let's start out. Yes, we're reviewing Zack Snyder's Justice League, and the day before this, Xavier and we watched the original Justice League from 2017.
I believe so, yeah.
And I guess just initial thoughts. What's your just one word to start out? We'll start out with one word about the movie. What's your one word you would say to describe this movie? Just think about it for a moment. One word to describe Zack Snyder's or the Justice. What is the name of the Justice League Zack Snyder's cut?
I guess.
Or Zack Snyder's.
I think it's Justice League the Zack Snyder cut is what it's called.
Oh, I have my word.
You have your word? Do you have your word?
I have my word.
Okay. All right. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, Xavier, tell us your word.
Slow.
Slow. Okay.
Well, mine's kind of similar. I'd say long.
And I would say just dark. Very, very dark. So Zion or Xavier, maybe Zion, give us a summary of the movie. Maybe what your summary is of this movie.
Obviously takes place basically almost right after the end of Batman versus Superman, where and the Zack Snyder cut sort of showed the end of Superman dying there, and then from there it was Wonder Woman and Batman sort of showing what they did, with Batman mainly going and trying to recruit a team so they could defend the Earth. So in general, he goes for Aquaman and also the Flash, and he also finds Cyborg, and they are trying to put together a team so they can defend the Earth against this big bad villain who's trying to get these boxes called the Mother Boxes to create the Unity and essentially destroy the Earth. Along the way, they sort of resurrect Superman, and then there's about a half-hour segment at the end full of teasers for the future movies after Justice League.
Xavier, do you want to add anything to that?
I guess the bad guy's name was Darkseid, because they kind of showed when they showed why Darkseid was coming back. It showed that Darkseid had lost to Earth, and that was the only planet he had ever lost to, because the Defenders of Earth, as they were called, were defending the anti-life equation, although they did not know it. And that's why Darkseid sent Steppenwolf to Earth to try and steal the...
Yeah, the anti-life equation, that was introduced. This is new to that wasn't in the other movie, right?
That was not in the original cut. So.
And the anti-life equation business was like...
It was the key to creating life and destroying life, basically. It's what...
I think, yeah.
And I don't think they were after the Mother Boxes. That came later. That was kind of added
the
on.
Anti-life equation was about an hour into the movie.
Darkseid was always looking for the anti-life equation, but then...
But that wasn't the focus of the initial part of the movie, which was kind of confusing. I think it was kind of like... That's why it felt tacked on, was just because, like, about 3 hours into the movie, mind you, 3 hours into this epic that felt like we were just driving across the country. You could drive across South Dakota faster, I believe.
Probably.
About 3 hours in, they just said, "Oh yeah, by the way, this anti-life equation." And the names of things were a little odd to me, like the anti-life equation, the Unity, like.
It felt like Avengers.
I think it was sort of meant to be Justice League, but going into much more detail with like what the Mother Boxes were, and I think in the end, Zack Snyder kind of traded out, going more in detail with losing, I think, some of the more interesting parts of Justice League and some of my favorite parts of the original Justice League cut.
So, I would say, I'll give you my personal summary of this movie was, you see the end of Batman v Superman at the beginning, right? And then it's just a whole bunch of nonsense for like 3 hours and 50 minutes. It's just even the beginning when they have the Superman dying, the weird what is that thing they kept using, this like CGI where it looks like a painting?
Yeah.
And they have like the Superman's yelling.
And you can hear it all over the world and at everybody needs to know that Superman died.
Yes,
It was.
yes.
It was,
I think.
Superman
think-
died and hey, did you get that Superman died?
I
No,
think
you
in
didn't.
general,
Okay,
I think
Superman
one
died.
of Zack Snyder's favorite moves in this movie was using the slow motion and using heavy CGI with most parts, along
Like,
with that
in
slow
the-
motion.
In the Dark Side battle where he first came to Earth, it looked like a video game. It looked like
Yeah.
one of the Madden football games.
Yeah,
It was
yeah. A
just
lot
kind
of it
like-
looked like a video
was,
game.
It was like kind of like blocky on the face.
Yeah, I think quite a bit of it felt like you were looking at more of like a PS5 game, like because
Mhm.
PS5 games they look really cool, and it's like wow, that's so, like the Avengers game that they had that came out, like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, it's
It
it's
looks
better.
so cool.
It looks better, but then it kind of is a flop.
The more you look at it, though, it's like yeah, there's something wrong with that. And I think we love watching Corridor Crew, and they talk about that a lot in terms of like how do you not do that. I'm not sure if they do it the best, but at least I'm not sure how they would review this, but yeah, there was a lot of it that was kind of like.
I think for the majority of the movie, I think actually using that slow motion made it seem a lot more fake, and I think a lot of just in general, both between the original cut and the Zack Snyder cut, I think between a lot of the movement of the characters and just how they moved in general, I think it looked really odd, especially when you added on that slow motion.
Yeah. There was a lot. There was so much slow motion. I feel like that added probably about 30 minutes just to the movie because.
I'd say even longer to go like 45, maybe even an hour. Especially I mean, the original movie was 2.5 hours long.
No, it was
Yes.
2 hours.
2 hours long.
2 hours.
yeah,
long.
Then-
yeah, we watched it the other day. It was about 2 hours.
And I mean, they had about like 15, 20 minutes of extra credits parts at the end. So that's about, like 30, 40 minutes of.
I know it was 15
Slow
minutes.
motion.
Yeah, they had a little bit of like a post-credit thing,
Yeah.
I believe. I don't
But
remember.
they didn't really have as much slow motion.
Yeah, the slow mo.
they
It was
went-
like excessive
It
when
was
they have.
very excessive.
I think like
Zack
the.
Snyder's cut went very overboard with the slow motion.
Yeah.
I think he was trying to make it dramatic, and it's dramatic at first, but then when you just keep reusing it, it just becomes like bleh.
Yeah. It's like hitting you in the face with a hammer, kind of, or something. Like.
Yeah, it's like a goat hitting you in the face with.
I
his
think
giant
it's
axe.
probably like white chocolate. Like when you eat a little bit of white chocolate, it's so delicious to eat a little bit. But then when you have when you have anything more than just like 5 ounces, it starts to be like sickening,
Yeah.
sort of.
And sorry to any of the white chocolate fans out there.
We don't mean to diss you.
Diss you.
We don't like white chocolate more than 5 ounces.
So yeah, I think that was a big part of it. I also thought that it was, like when I was watching it, I watched a little bit before you guys. I went jogging. And I was just like, let me see this movie, and I was just. Even like the first 5 minutes, I think that a slow mo scene with Lois Lane walking to get coffee, and they had to put that with like some slow motion. And
Actually, I
And it
think
was
the
all-
first
it
5
was-
minutes of the movie were just Superman yelling.
that's true. Yes,
There
was a lot of that going on. There was,
It was like darker than the original cut. The original
Yeah.
cut, it was still like half raining, but it was still like bright out, kind of.
yeah,
I think
It was like the sun was shining through to tell you, oh, it's sad, but something's going to come and like save the day, basically.
yes. The favorite color of this was definitely grays and blues. The whole movie.
yes, grays, blues, and blacks.
And that's like we had just watched together this morning. We had finished watching Captain America. I wanted to like touch on this. We watched The Winter Soldier, which has like a very dark feel to it for a Marvel movie.
But
yeah, it still has a lot of those bright colors. I
Yeah,
think.
and that's the thing. It feels like to me it feels more realistic when you actually have that. Like we also mentioned the Dark Knight and the Batman trilogy. But even that had like really beautiful colors in it, I think, when you saw like the cinematography and stuff. And maybe you guys don't get the cinematography yet. You're
I
younger,
think
but
that he's trying too hard almost to make it a dark feeling.
Yeah, I
He's
think-
making it dark.
like,
Rather, it's not
although-
the feeling of dark. It's more of just dark.
just the color's gone. It's like
Yeah.
everything's washed out. Like Wonder Woman, you
Yeah.
see her uniform is like washed out. I think in the first 20 minutes, I don't know. Time just doesn't pass the same anymore. Maybe that's what he wanted to get across to us as a theme for the movie because he wanted to make it 4 hours. Because time does not pass the same way for
Yeah.
some reason after watching this movie.
And
I feel like my life is shortened.
Which isn't a good thing. So don't watch the movie.
Okay, don't watch the movie.
I think in general, while using like those darker colors are a good way to sort of show like a darker theme and like sort of the movie weighing down on you. I think it was just overused a bit, and
There's
it was
a limit.
a bit exaggerated.
Yeah,
There's
everything was just over the top. Like we talked about the first. I think the first again that Lois Lane scene stood out for me in the beginning when she's getting the coffee and they had like the music was playing and it was like this really mopey song and it was like the gods have
almost-
failed us. And the lyrics were just like so in your face with
Yeah.
like
And it was almost like
oh
it wasn't dramatic even after a little bit. It just became almost like whining.
yes, I like that idea. Yeah.
I think
Like at first, it's like, okay, I get it. You're sad. You're mourning. You loved him, whatever. But then after, you just keep going on and on. And then we also learned she hasn't been going to.
work and it
Then
just
it's like, okay, stop being a wimp.
Stop it. And we don't know how much time has passed.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Yeah.
the thing.
I
Like
think
it
that's-
seems like time.
that's another big thing is that they don't really he doesn't put across like how long time has passed actually.
Yeah.
We just kind of have to make an estimate of like whether it's just a day or it's a year. Like we don't know how
feels-
long it has been since Superman's died.
Yes, that's
It feels more like the whole movie lasting feels like a month or 2 months, when I think it's trying to be like 2 days at most.
well. I think the cut of the movie too. I saw this the little bit I saw like an hour before that, and then you and I watched the 1st Justice League. And when I watched the first Justice League, I was like kind of refreshed because I was like, oh, that makes sense now. Like the time makes a little more sense in terms of this is like feels like it's a couple months or whatever after. It just has a feeling like that. But I think like the beginning when Bruce Wayne goes to Iceland, comes back, all this, it's like this is weeks and weeks
Yeah.
to have this stuff happen, but suddenly it just feels like nope, this is like just yesterday that Superman died, and it's just like there's no I mean not like the comparison always is Marvel. Not that Marvel didn't do stuff like that in their movies, but they never like
Over exaggerated.
they never did it to a point where you felt like, okay, I'm making this somehow blend into the plot. Like it feels like it's just different, I
Maybe
guess.
it also feels like time is like slower and then faster because of all the stuff they had with Flash going back in time. And the going back in time, it just altered every time. It'd be like, oh, you have to go faster to go back in time than when you were going back in time. The first time we went back in time was when they were trying to resurrect Superman, and he didn't have to go very far. He didn't have to keep running. He barely had any electricity, but he still made it back in time. And then at the end of the movie, to end the main part of the movie, basically, he went back in time, but it was exaggerated. Like, oh, I have to keep this for a long time just to go back in time for a few minutes.
Well, I think that was another weakness they had was that they just had all these characters they wanted to tell a little bit of each one of their stories. But the
Yeah.
problem was that this was before the movies were made that they had. So it was like Marvel had the luxury of Iron Man and they had a
Captain
Hulk movie and a
America.
Captain America movie and a Thor movie. They had all this. They'd built up the characters before. So when we saw them in these other movies, there was like, okay, I know about.
Such
I don't need a
as-
story for that character now.
Such as the Avengers. Like we didn't need to have their backstory because if we watched Iron Man, like we knew where he came from, we knew how he became Iron Man, and then they didn't have to explain that in the Avengers. It could be wholly focused on them getting together and fighting this one supervillain.
Yeah.
Well, DC did have some stuff to explain most of the characters. Like
But they didn't-
Aquaman was the only one, but they didn't use it. They tried to re-explain it because they weren't using really the same character ideas. They were starting to twist it to fit the movie better, to show them that anybody can become a team.
And I think another problem is that none of the characters like really argued within all of the movie, whereas like in Avengers, like there were multiple arguments along the way, but within the whole 4 hours of the Justice League movie, not one of the characters ever got super upset with another character. I mean, Superman sort of beat them all up, but
But that was different. That
that
was
was
in
different.
the,
That was because he like didn't have his memory. Like he didn't know who they
Well,
were.
even in the first Justice League, the original one that came out in 2017, they did have one
One
major
art.
fight. See, they had one major fight, and that was before they were trying to decide.
Whether to resurrect Superman or not.
Yeah,
But
and they took that out. Zack Snyder took that out in his cut, though.
But he had a little bit later. It's just that was the other
Yeah.
thing that kind of
Yeah.
happened, and we can come back to that point about like the argument and the characters and stuff. But I think the other thing was the way it was cut together was he would break up these scenes, and so many of the scenes were just longer.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first scene with the women, the Amazons, it was like 5 minutes, and the other movie was like a minute, and it was like this 5 minute thing, and then they cut it and they go back to it again, and it's like, just stay there and tell that little bit instead of cutting back and forth to something else, and then it's like
they did that a lot too, where they would like leave off on like a little cliffhanger, and then they go to someone else's story, and then they go right back, and then it just keep cutting. So eventually, you're like, wait, what's happening again?
And that's where I think the time thing comes in, because in other movies they do that, but it'll like jump ahead. Like they were doing this yesterday, it cuts to this other scene with other characters, and then they come back, it's the next day or an hour later. And this was like, nope, we're just right back 5 minutes after we did this, and we're still having this conversation. It's like, that's why you keep that scene together.
And I think that's
I think that it was also longer because they tried to hold the drama in it, but they held it too far. Like, as you said in the Amazon scene, it was much longer. And also, it was because she's like, oh, please keep Diana safe, but throw her into a war. Keep her safe during a war. And do this and that. Please keep my daughter safe. Please, please,
Yeah,
please.
they tried to build up a lot of drama.
Yeah,
a lot of drama.
I think all of this sort of, again, touches back on just them trying to create a story for each and every character, which is, I think, why so many of the cuts were chopped up, was because it wouldn't have made sense for those to go in, like, different orders if they were trying to tell all these different stories, such as when they were arguing about whether to resurrect Superman or not. They had that part, and then they cut to Lois Lane, and then they cut back, which I think was, it just didn't feel right, because again, the time didn't feel it didn't feel like there was any time shift whatsoever, so it just didn't feel smooth.
And also, I think they added in a big part for trying to bring in more Justice League characters. In the original Justice League, it was just the 5 main characters: Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Cyborg, and Batman, who are like the main Justice League characters. But then in this, they brought in Martian Manhunter. At the end, they brought back Lex Luthor. They brought in Joker.
We can talk. I think that's a whole nother part we can talk about. We'll talk about that in a minute, because that was
the last 30 minutes.
That was just tedious. That was so. But we'll get back to that. So let's move along just a bit. Let's say our favorite scenes. And let's see, I want you to think about your favorite scene. I have an idea of my favorite scene. As I was watching, I was even like, it caught me. And I was actually like invested for 2 seconds of the movie. But the rest of it, I was just so out on all of it. It was just so boring through the whole thing, to be completely honest. And again, I don't want to say any disrespect if Zack Snyder watches this. I don't think he will, but just in case, we understand it takes a lot of effort to make these big movies and everything. We appreciate that. We love movies, but I'm sorry, it was just boring. It was just so much, and originally it was boring. It happens, you know.
It's when you make a movie that's 4 hours long, that's sort of expected.
You better have something that you're really like focused on if you're gonna make a 4-hour movie. But again, we appreciate that it's made, but this is just when we see things we're stating that we dislike it. We just do. I'm sorry.
Basically giving you tips. So if you make
I don't think he needs our tips. he's got a lot of movies under his belt, but just from our perspective, it was frustrating, I guess, as an audience to say that. So anyways, favorite scene. Think about your favorite scene. Who wants to start out?
I'll start out. I think my favorite scene was sort of the first fight scene with all of the characters when they were rescuing Cyborg's father, and Batman. He went up with this move against an alien. He was running, and then he grabbed hooked to kick the alien. Yeah, and it was kind of funny because it just didn't look smooth whatsoever.
Yeah, we were talking
and it
about
was just
that
kind of it was just a nice little silly scene. It kind of brought me back into the movie, I think.
We talked about that one a lot.
If that scene wasn't there, I probably would have just kind of like been like, yeah, I don't really want to watch the rest of this movie. But I think after seeing that scene, it was just kind of fun to watch Batman sort of fight everybody.
Sorry, Ben Affleck. Sorry about that, but yeah, we had some comments about that.
It was almost like Batman grappled and then slipped down a banana peel.
I think that we can talk about the characters. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about the Batman. But Xavier, what do you think? Your favorite scene then?
Oh, that's hard. I'd probably have to agree with Zion, or I also liked the fight scene when Superman was beating all of the other characters.
Yeah, all
when he
the
was
Justice League
resurrected.
up.
Yeah, I think that was
Especially
alright.
the head battle
Yeah.
between Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I don't know. That's one thing I don't like when they do these movies. There's no stakes because the characters just aren't injured ever. The only
Yeah.
I mean, I think Flash being injured was interesting, but they never let
Like it
moved
didn't
on with
it didn't really say anything because in the end he still saved the day. I think
Yeah, and
there weren't really enough stakes
and
here.
Flash also
that-
wasn't really that big because everybody else was really fast. The only person who couldn't go like as fast as him
Was
without being in
Batman.
a car was Batman.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
otherwise it feels like everybody's as fast as the Flash.
Yeah, like,
but nobody's going like Superman. I understand because he's Superman, but like Cyborg and Wonder Woman.
I think that's another problem is that a lot of the characters were too overpowered, and especially like between Wonder Woman, Superman, and even Cyborg and Aquaman, like those four, like they could pretty much do everything. Which like Wonder Woman could move fast. She was pretty strong, and like she had some really cool powers, such as
The
like her
wristbands.
yeah, like the wristbands.
So the only person who was kind of having stakes was Flash, but then he didn't really matter because it wasn't a
And-
stake to the
yeah.
team.
Yeah, and I think that was again to compare. We just watched this morning. We just watched The Winter Soldier again because I love that movie. That's just a cool movie. It's one of my favorite Marvel movies for the MCU. But it was like seeing that. Like, there's granted, like Captain America is not going to get beat up totally, but still, there's like moments when they're getting shot and
it gets
beat up,
really
and
tense.
And it's I don't know if it's really tense, but at least you feel like the shots matter when they get punched or something a little bit more.
Or they get caught by surprise more. I think that in this movie it was like, oh, they were expecting everything, but in Winter Soldier, like when the missile got shot, they were like, oh no, something, we might not live. It was more dramatic without, I don't think, trying to be as dramatic.
When you say the missile, you mean at the end when the thing went off?
No, when they shot the missile towards
When they were
Cap.
with Arnim Zola.
Oh yeah, so in that one when they're
It's
there was just
like,
a
oh,
lot more moments when you felt
yeah.
like the physicality.
There's-
Maybe
yeah.
because there's also so much computer stuff whenever they'd fight, and the other one was just much more like actual like things.
Choreographed.
Yeah, choreographed stuff. I think my favorite scene was the end when Superman came, and that was the only moment in the movie when I was like, ooh, okay, they did that
Yeah.
well. When he came in and like beat up Steppenwolf at the very not the whole scene, just that moment when he arrived.
I think
I was like, because I heard you say ooh, and I was the same. I was like, that was cool. Yeah,
Although,
I'm in
I
on the
didn't-
Superman coming back and saving the day. It felt like Superman. It
But
felt like
I
a
didn't
Superman
like
movie.
it. I
But-
didn't like it because after Superman came and started beating them up, then the rest just got kind of
Yeah,
powerful.
they
Like
really-
before Aquaman, Wonder Woman, they were getting beat up, but then after they were all like, "Yahoo! I can beat you! Ha ha!"
Yeah, it was like they had a cheat code on. Or
Yeah,
something.
and I mean while they like the Marvel movies did something similar, I like with the idea that it's a person that like sort of boosts their powers and like the way that it makes them think they can be better, sort of like with Captain America who like
Yeah,
boosts the whole morale or something. I
Like
think
the-
with Superman he's
concept.
just too powerful that it really makes it feel like that.
And that was like leaving him to the end to do that. I think also at the end when he was just pounding on him at the
Yeah.
very end, and it was like Darkseid's coming through, and it's like,
that.
why
when
don't
he
you
was-
use your super speed and
yeah.
like do something? I don't know. It's just like that whole part was kind of like,
Even when he was when at first when he started beating him up, it was like, oh yeah, he's strong. But I think it would have been cool if Steppenwolf actually got to fight back because it felt like
Yeah.
Superman just got him beat.
Yeah,
too
it
quickly,
kind
and
of
he
it
was
kind of
just showing
seemed like
off.
I think it would have been better because throughout the whole movie it felt like Steppenwolf was somebody like that could match up to Superman, but then in the end like he got defeated super easily by Superman.
and I think that's where it runs into problems too. Is you never know you don't understand like the extent of the character. There's never anything that shows the boundaries of their powers, I guess. And I guess Marvel doesn't do it either as much, but it feels like for some reason I mean,
Yeah, like Captain
I guess like
America.
in Infinity War they had like a planet fall on their head literally, or a moon or whatever. So there's like stuff like that, but I just feel like you don't know how powerful they are, where their weaknesses lie. It's just like they're super powerful, and then suddenly like nope, oh he's beating them. It's like
I think that was a
Oh.
big problem is that they didn't really have any categories they were defined in, where like they had this certain power that
Mm-hmm.
outshone. Like in the Marvel universe, obviously there's Iron Man, who's like this tech savvy guy who like builds this armor. There's like the Hulk, who's this rage monster. Captain America, who's like he's like super fit and strong, but he's not overly strong. There's
I think that at first in Marvel, as time passed by, like in Endgame and Infinity War, slowly
they got really powerful,
Yeah.
but I think
Yeah.
But at first it was better, and also I think that Steppenwolf got defeated, and then even with the power of the Mother Box, they said, "Oh yeah, the Mother Box is super powerful." When they were talking about resurrecting Superman, and you could see he had the power of the Mother Boxes before they were in Unity, but then he just got beaten by Superman, which didn't make any sense because he could single-handedly take on all the others.
Yeah.
and
but
still
then-
like not get scratched.
Yeah,
I
but then
think-
when Superman came, even with more power, he just got like punched in the face, basically.
And I think that was the thing about that scene that was just really cool to see, but just because it was against Superman doing Superman stuff. But it was still like that moment when he chops the axe and it like hits him and he's just like right there. That was like, oh, that was kind of cool to see Superman being Superman. But then after that it was just like, and it was like they're fighting someplace I don't care about. It's like I can't see what's going on. It's like just to like
It just was too
blurry
dark.
red and kind of.
I think that's like one of the biggest things about having those darker muted colors was the fact that you couldn't really see what was going on, and I think that's why I liked the original cut better, was because you could actually see what was going on because like the colors were a lot brighter.
Yeah.
And in the original one too, I feel that Superman didn't beat Steppenwolf as easily. It still took some strength.
Mm-hmm.
And in the original one, they also had more like drama because they had to go and save the civilians, and then they also had to worry about Steppenwolf while Cyborg was trying to tear the Mother Boxes apart.
Yeah, they had that whole scene was not in there with the family that they had in the other one. They took that out. I think that was probably put in just for that reason, just to give it some stakes, versus just computer people fighting.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think within the whole movie, a lot of it just felt very CG. Like it felt
And also
just
in
very.
In the first one, it felt like at first when you saw all the sprouts coming, it felt like, oh, that's kind of pretty. But then as it progressed, you saw, oh no, it's not pretty at all. And then it turned pretty. But then in this one, it's just like, oh, everything's dark, nothing's going to be nice.
Yeah.
I think it felt like everywhere felt really Gotham-y.
Yeah, and that was everything was just super duper, super depressing.
Yeah.
That was the other part. It was just felt
I
like.
think with those muted colors, I think it just made it feel a lot longer than it actually was. Like I remember watching it. Like we didn't watch it in one segment. We actually watched like the first 3 hours and we finished the last hour. But the first 3 hours, I remember like I thought we were like already at least halfway through, but we were only like an hour in. And I mean, it like I thought it was like forever already. Like I thought we were almost done with the movie. It just kind of felt like that. But I think that was another big problem, was that there wasn't really any peak to the movie. Like there wasn't any climax or anything within the plot.
Yeah, it felt. I mean, that's what happened too. It was like just the flow of the film was not. Just it didn't feel like it moved along. It felt like it was just telling every single tiny piece, and it was like
The
very
only part
janky.
that felt lower than the others was the beginning when it was just like kind of boring, still recruiting. But then it just like jumped up, and then it was just all super high, and then at the end it's just done.
Yeah, and so what can we say? We're just we can rag on this all day long.
Yeah.
How about favorite or least favorite characters?
Oh, that's hard.
I'll say mine. I don't know if I have one. I don't really have a favorite character because they were all like just. I didn't care about any of them really. I would say like the closest one that had some personality was Flash. They tried to give him no other character had personality.
Yeah.
No one had anything that. Wonder Woman, I don't care what she's doing because it's like she doesn't say anything. They all are just so focused on I guess,
Flash
being
felt
superheroes
more-
and stopping
yeah,
things, and it's
Flash
like,
felt more human. Like he actually had fears. He was like, "Oh, I'm hungry. He was like distracted always."
I think
Yeah.
he his personality, like, it didn't, just him speaking and stuff, it didn't make him feel like it was like an actual movie. Like, it didn't feel like this was rehearsed. It made it feel like more free
More
flowing,
natural.
a bit more
Yeah.
natural. I think just his lines made it feel a slightly more natural.
and I felt like he was almost like that Ant-Man vein where he's like kind of
Yeah.
a second, not second tier, but just, which is weird because it just felt like all these other, like you said, they're all overpowering, and it's like, then this one guy's
Yeah.
not, and the rest of them are all just like, we can do whatever, we're big.
Yeah,
bad.
like the one or two are not.
And they just kept introducing powers for them. Like suddenly I can do this now, and like magically they're doing. Maybe there was other stuff that I missed, but because I was just so like, bleh.
And I think, I think my favorite character is probably Flash as well, especially since, like, when he really first got introduced, like, with Batman meeting him, I think it just made the whole movie, like, it added just a touch of realism to it, where, like, when they met up, he was trying to, like, fool Batman a
Yeah,
bit.
he was trying to
and
hide
then,
it.
Yeah, he was trying to hide, like, his powers and stuff. And then I remember probably my favorite line from one of my favorite lines from the movie is when when Batman says his powers are super speed, and then Flash goes on to explain about like the Speed Force and stuff, and then Flash asks, "What's your power?" And then obviously Batman's just like, "I'm rich," like that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
and it just
even-
made it feel just a touch more real because
I think that Flash brings more personality
yeah, I
out
think
of the other characters.
yeah.
But then when they're battling, he's just like dorky kind of.
Yeah.
And even he felt more he felt like the nerd kind of because he was like, "Oh, people, I don't understand them. They're like this equation that I don't get. Like, what is brunch? What's this? What's that?" And he felt like he had questions actually. Like especially when at first it feels like he was trying to hide it like Zion said, but Bruce Wayne didn't try to hide it. He just kind of had thrown the Batarang, and then and it also feels like when they originally met in the chair, he's like, "Oh, but that doesn't explain why you're in my second favorite chair, this or that. Like, what are you doing here?" So I think that it just made the team feel more like a team and not just a bunch of robots doing the job.
Yeah, and I don't know. I guess I just didn't care for most of the characters. So I can't pick my favorite. I thought Cyborg would be interesting, but he didn't do much. It was just
Batman was funny, but it wasn't like purposely funny. It was just
Yeah.
like
yeah. It was
lame.
not intentional. Like we were joking about like there's so many scenes when he comes in late, and we were just joking about like maybe he was like because everybody joked. It was like you guys said before. He looks like a slow fat Batman, and every time it was like. When he'd like come in late and it'd be like, maybe he's just like, guys, I'm coming. I'll be there soon. I had to get a sub. Hold on. like there's a couple of scenes, like the one scene when they go into the military base, and I even like mentioned it, and they all go in the van, but he like swoops into something. It's like, why did he do that? Like what? Just because he's Batman? Like it would have been cool if they played that off and made him like a caricature almost. It would have been better than what it was.
I think
Or also, we joked about when they had the teaser with Deathstroke. We joked about how, oh, Chunky Batman has to play Chunky Deathstroke.
Yeah,
I think that was another problem with like within the characters of the movie is their movements felt really chunky. Like Wonder Woman, like moving really really fast. I think just felt really odd
It
because
almost looks like she teleported.
Yeah,
there was
'cause-
this blur behind it.
because I think it when you think of Wonder Woman, like you don't think of her being super fast. You think of her like maybe being like super strong and like obviously having her wrist things. But I mean, outside of that, we don't think of her as having like this super speed such
And
as
also-
Flash.
Also, Aquaman seemed to waddle like a penguin when he entered. When they were fighting Steppenwolf at the end, he kind of waddled in and put his trident down.
I think it just felt really, their movements felt just really chunky, and I think
feel like Batman's movements are probably the funniest.
yeah.
I think because it just, again, I don't know how much choreography was in it. I feel like there was a lot of computer stuff. And granted, the other movies have that too, but it was like, there just wasn't that kinetic kind of energy to things that, like we've said, when we compare that to what we watched this morning with The Winter Soldier again, where there's just like, there is energy to the fight scenes and things like that. Because, and it's just, the stakes are real, it feels more like, because they're not just trying to save the universe, which I feel like is a problem with a lot of the movies. Like, I don't really care about, I care about the universe, obviously, but I can't understand if the universe is destroyed or not. It doesn't make sense to me.
And I think that was like that's another big difference between like the Avengers and Justice League is that the Avengers, like, they put, like, obviously when the Council, who is like this group of like world leaders.
Oh, in Winter Soldier, yes. Okay.
Or no, I'm talking about Avengers.
Okay.
Yeah, they still
But
have the council.
when they sent the nuke to New York, like, we could semi understand like what would happen if New York got nuked. Like,
Yeah.
it was semi understandable. Or like when there was this huge invasion of like aliens, like, it might not be imaginable. Like, we might not physically understand it, but like it made the stakes feel more real. And especially since like there were actual people like running on the streets and like being freaked out, where like the Avengers had to swoop in and save them. Whereas in Justice League, like, it wasn't set in a big city, so like there weren't people in the way, so
Yeah.
it just was, the stakes weren't as high.
And also, I think that the police, like, there wasn't any police or any help in there,
Yeah.
which made it, because the police in the other one, it made it feel cool because the heroes had to kind of earn the police's trust. Like, Captain America had to show them, oh yeah, I am the boss. You're gonna listen to me.
And I think too, like, the other thing that I thought about whenever I watch the DC movies, I get kind of pulled out just because when we say Metropolis and Gotham and
It just
Central
doesn't-
City, it doesn't ever feel real because they can always mold Gotham to be whatever they want it to be. Like, they can make Gotham small, some parts rural, some parts dark city, some parts this, some part rich. Metropolis, they can do whatever they want with it. Whereas, like, when you say New York, it's like there's an
we understand
aesthetic
what
to
New York is.
We understand what Chicago. If you set it in Milwaukee, or if you set it in Green Bay or in Phoenix, like, there's an aesthetic to that's there. Or Los Angeles, and it's like, okay, we're there. We know what that's like. We understand it. Even if you've never been to Los Angeles, you understand they can't put certain things in there because that's not Los Angeles. Whereas with these, it pulls you out just a bit because it's like whenever they need to mold it into something, they just do it. It's like, okay, we need Gotham to be like this. Let's make it like that because it's Gotham. It's not a real place, and that's where I get pulled out with DC a little bit because it's almost like they can just do that anytime they want.
And I think,
And
yeah,
I think another part is that the thing with the fake cities and stuff is that you can't really have like landmarks that say, oh yeah, I know where that is, if they don't put the name on it. Like, if you really like DC, then you'll know, oh, that's Wayne Manor, so it has to be Gotham or whatever. But like New York is just like New York. You know when it's New York because
like
you see
the
the
Empire
buildings.
State Building,
Yeah.
like stuff like that. Like, there are landmarks that you understand what it is, and I think kind of going off of what you guys said, like, while Marvel has like created obviously like cities
Sokovia and
you have
things like that,
Sokovia
yeah.
and places like Wakanda, like, while they aren't real, like, we can kind of imagine what they're like because there are other locations that they're nearby where like Wakanda's placed in Africa, so we can kind of imagine what Wakanda would like be like, and places like that. I think it's a lot easier to imagine what it could
Or
be.
Sokovia's and
We don't know where that one. That was
Yeah.
confusing. That was
That
hard.
one was confusing.
That was Eastern Europe something.
I
But-
thought it was in Russia.
Yeah, somewhere like that. Eastern Europe or I don't know, Southwest Asia. So I don't know where it is. You can't really tell from that one. But I think also the big thing is that, like you said, Wakanda. They establish it a little better. Whereas I didn't know if we were in Gotham or Metropolis or
Yeah, I
whatever
think
because it's just
we
big
didn't-
city.
We didn't know where we were.
Yeah, and it's like at least with Wakanda, it's like they establish like this is what Wakanda looks like. This is, and I'm not a big fan of Black Panther, but this is what it looks like. This is what it is like there. Here now you understand this place a little better by establishing that. Whereas this is just like it's Metropolis. Everybody knows it. This is Gotham, and it's just like they had a reference. Like I don't understand where these two cities are compared to. Are they like across the? I thought in one of the other movies, was it like they're across the bay from each other, or it's like
Yeah,
they're
I
nearby,
thought- I
and
thought
I don't
that
really
that was-
understand like the relationship with that. So it just makes it harder to understand without really like devoting a little bit of time to helping us understand what is this place that we're in? What is Metropolis really? Where are we going to in this Metropolis? We need to have that also established for us, or else
And
it's
even
confusing.
I think that the one landmark in Metropolis was the Daily Planet building because it had the giant Earth on
But
it.
it was never
But,
shown
yeah.
once.
Yeah.
They even when they showed the Daily Planet, you could see that it didn't have the giant golden ball on it. It was just
Which-
a building, which made it like, oh, are we in Metropolis or are we in sunny Gotham?
And I think another thing is like the end battle, like it was basically in the middle of nowhere.
I think it was supposed to be like Chernobyl is what I felt
Yeah.
like, but I think later in this one they explained it's some other place. Maybe it's, and that was like, okay.
And I think having it I think it made it feel like it was basically in the middle of nowhere, which I think again like it didn't make the stakes seem as real, because when you have it in like a big city again, like you have people there are people's lives on the line, whereas if you have it in the middle of nowhere, like who's gonna be there to like get hurt in the line of fire?
So now let's just jump in real quick to that last 30 minutes. I actually saw online before this, people said that the Joker Batman scene was like, they were like, this is the best Batman Joker scene ever. And I was just like, when I saw it, I was just so...
I was extremely disappointed.
He didn't feel like Joker. Like the laugh
Yeah.
seemed fake, whereas Joker is like he has this insane laugh that you can define. Oh, that's Joker. Like
But,
they had
like-
the green hair, but it was just too messy.
I think it didn't, especially since like Batman and Joker were like frenemies sort of in that scene. Like it just didn't feel like Batman and Joker, and I think, and I don't think there was enough in-depth explanation about like what was going on.
Yeah, I
It
didn't
was just
understand
all
anything
very
until...
confusing
It was
because
confusing about whose side was which because when they were talking, they said, "Oh yeah, when Harley Quinn died in my arms, she asked me to stretch the
Yeah,
death."
just like...
But Harley Quinn works with the Joker, so then
Well, that's what
was-
they're trying to say, because they were doing this... And that was the other thing, too, is they had all this story they were giving in that 2 minutes where they're talking to each other, like... You didn't tell us any of this backstory. You can't just throw this at us in like the last 5 minutes just to give it lip service and make it feel like cool, the Joker and Batman in another movie. Like it was just too much. It was just I like you said too. I was like, what is this? What are we doing here? I don't understand. And had I not like read a little bit beforehand online and known it was like a vision or something, I would have been like totally like, what the heck's going on? Like, is this the end of the movie? Why is Joker here? What's Deathstroke doing here? What's all this nonsense going
and actually I remember when you told Xavier and I like Joker was gonna be in this, we're like, wait, what? Like we were so confused. We're like,
Yeah,
is
I
he
just-
just gonna pop up in the end battle and be like, it's Joker here?
on? Yeah.
like that was what I was wanting to see because I wanted to see if they made Joker actually cool, if they got Joker well, and then it was just like a big disappointment. Like, oh yeah, no.
And I think another big part of that end scene was like you had to like there were a bunch of other flashbacks or flash forwards within the movie, and you had like connect all of them to semi understand what was going on, and that like it was sort of Superman that it turned bad.
And they didn't really like, yeah, they didn't really like establish any of that or earn any of that. It was just like throwing it at you, like, cool, we're gonna have another movie, and they're not going to apparently, but it was like just to establish the next movie in a cool way, and it was like, this is just too much. I don't care about all these characters being introduced. All I care about is like I don't know. It's different to have like Tony Stark or Nick Fury go to Tony Stark and say, we're starting this new initiative. We want you to join. It's called S.H.I.E.L.D. And that's like the ending. That's the teaser. Instead of this 5-minute thing, that this dialogue between them and blah, 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 and telling this story about like Harley Quinn and Robin and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
And I think again
I don't know.
that's
For the comic book people, they may have loved it, who read all the comics and everything. They may love it, but for me, I'm just like, this is boring and I don't care anymore. I didn't care. I was lost already, so whatever.
And yeah, I think again that within like Iron Man, where you have that Nick Fury scene, you don't need to understand what happened in Iron Man to it's like totally separate from the Iron Man before.
Well, no, it's still building on the movie though. It's still built on
Yeah.
the Iron Man movie. You understand? This is Iron Man. They had talked about Shield before.
But you don't need to make the corrections from you don't need to make the connections from the movie to understand. So you don't need to connect anything to the movie. Like it's sort of like standalone. It's like more of a teaser trailer rather than building. Like it was very building up. It almost felt like the whole this cut of Justice League was sort of building up to that last 30 minutes, and then it just kind of ended.
Well, I wonder what if they were gonna make a Darkseid movie that's gonna be that same thing. It just felt like if it happens, it felt like it was gonna be the same movie again because it was just like the same result. Like it's still the same bad guy coming and the same thing happening with all of life being just like.
And I think that's
what's
again,
different
the
about
problem
it if you make it a second time.
I think that's kind of the problem with DC movies. Then is you just have the outcome's always going to be the same because the characters within DC are just too powerful to be stopped. So I think it just becomes sort of boring.
And that's the thing I think Marvel's gonna. I hope they don't run into with some of the new movies that are coming out with all these different powerful characters that they're introducing in like the Inhumans and all this. It's gonna be
is that they don't make like one very very overpowered character.
Yeah, like the I think that's what I'm afraid they're gonna run into with some of these other new characters they're talking about. It's like
or even like obviously Scarlet Witch. I think she has become very powerful within the last WandaVision TV series. So.
And if they establish that and keep it like something within there, it could still be okay. But I don't know. And I think true when we talk about Marvel, like there's been some misses with their end credit scenes. There's been a couple where it's like, okay, that's too comic booky. That's like I don't. That's for the comic book people to really get into. Whereas for me, it's like I don't really. Like I think Captain America: Winter Soldier had the one where it showed the twins. That was the end credit scene for this one. It was like.
We didn't really understand what was happening.
Like, what's going on? You need to be a comic book person to really care about this. Otherwise, we don't. It goes in the next movie, sure, but it's not the same as like, here, we're just going to show you this character and what's going to happen to him next. In any case, that last 30 minutes, I'm sorry, was just tedious.
Yeah.
I guess.
Who's your least favorite characters then?
We kind of already went over
I'm not
that.
sure who my least favorite character.
I have a least favorite.
Who's your least favorite character?
My least favorite character was Steppenwolf, not just because he was the villain, but I didn't like his looks in the new cut. He looked
in the
like
new
a
cut.
goat.
In the new cut, yeah, he
Like a goat.
a goat.
Yeah, he did. I don't know, his eyes just seemed off.
And I think I'm guessing that it because a lot of the cuts were this like it still used a lot of cuts, but like his armor and stuff was different. So I'm assuming that it was a guy in a tracksuit that was actually doing it.
The CG suit.
Yeah,
or
this tracksuit. So I'm
maybe
guessing
it was just
or it was 100%
CG.
CG.
Yeah.
But I think it just didn't look right. It just looking at him like you could instantly tell that he was CG.
Yeah, and I think that was the other thing. One other thing I hated a lot was just the voice work. Was that they had all the bad guys had like the
deep voice.
Well, they had like a digital effect put on their voice, which I hate. And Batman had it too. Anytime he turned into
like
Batman,
a double voice.
Yeah, it was like a deeper, distorted kind of thing that they put on all of them that made it sound like a cartoon. And I hated that. That was one thing I enjoyed about like Thanos was that it was just his voice, and he was just a normal guy with not a normal guy, but he had a normal voice. So it that's something as people like we connect to.
And I think
and understand reality is like this is real. That's a real voice. It's not a computer voice. It was something that made like something like Jarvis feel real. Was that they had just a real person's voice doing the voice work for it. It wasn't like a digitized version of it. It was a real voice, and that was they establishing that makes it feel like a character actually versus making it feel like a cartoon, like Thundercats or Transformers on the TV or something. But yeah, the voice work was definitely blah. But yeah, I agree. And his I thought the outfit change was kind of like cool. Like you've got razor blades all over your body now.
I think that it was. It felt more overpowering for Steppenwolf in the original, because he was just like it was just plain armor, but he was still so powerful. It felt more where like he actually built up his strength and everything to be super powerful. But in the new one, in the Zack Snyder cut, it felt like, oh, it feels like something in his suit is making him more powerful. Because when he had his armor off, he looked super frail.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think too, like we didn't understand what he was just super powerful. We don't know what his
connection to Darkseid was, or like we didn't really understand
the dark side.
Yeah, Darkseid, or why he was trying to conquer Earth or anything. Like it was all very.
But even like his powers, I didn't know what is his power.
Yeah.
He's just really powerful. He's just really strong, and I don't know. Like that's something you need also is to understand.
Like
he had an axe, but they didn't really establish like this is his weapon or something. Like Loki has certain things that he does, and these you need to have the villain actually have some character too. Although this one was better than the other one, but I don't know.
Loki has a scepter and knives.
Yeah,
that's like
and then like he can do magic stuff. That's basically his powers. Or like Thanos, he's just strong, but once he gets the Infinity Stones, he can basically do.
And yeah, Thanos was one where he's just kind of an OP guy, but they also established him as a character more. I mean, but I think like Magneto, we understand what his powers are. We understand this is a superhero movie.
Yeah.
We have to understand, and like we said earlier, the superheroes too in this, they just had any powers. They were super strong, super fast. Aquaman could jump through the air and fly, and like not really fly, but
glide
there was never any stakes for him to do anything. Yeah.
Like Flash, I think was the only one who had
Flash and Batman who like.
Yeah.
And Batman was just chubby.
Yeah, but it felt like Flash was the
chubby
only one. Flash was the only one who had one certain power, and that was he was fast.
Yeah. Okay, so what is our rating for this? What's your rating of this movie? We'll say out of 10.
Out of 10, I thought we usually do like school grades, like ABCD.
Oh, ABCD. Okay, we'll do school grades then. ABCD.
I think I know mine.
I know mine. I don't want to influence you guys and bias you.
I know mine.
Okay.
I'll go
Xavier,
first.
You go first.
I give it a C+ for effort.
A lot of effort because it's 4 hours.
Yeah.
It must have been.
I give it a B- for Batman.
A B-. Wow, that's high. Wow.
No, just because it's B for Batman.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, be careful with that grading. I don't know if it's a B-. There's.
Like some of the characters were funny.
I think if I was doing an actual grading, it'd probably be like C-, maybe like a D+, maybe.
I have to give it a D. It was just too much.
So
I feel like I feel tired from watching that.
Yeah.
Over 2 days, I feel tired after watching that movie.
After watching,
It just.
I thought
makes you feel like almost lagged.
I mean, I thought we would be done with the movie on the first day, but after it just was so long.
Yeah.
It just kept going and going and.
Yeah. Even today when we were watching it the last hour, I was still like. There's like a half hour left still. What? We got so much done already.
So
gosh.
long.
Yeah. So yeah, that's our review here at Movie Masterminds. Our review of Justice League Zack Snyder cut. We'll post this probably just on YouTube. I don't know if we'll have the podcast website going or whatever, but we'll post this on YouTube for sure. You guys want to say anything?
Yeah, subscribe and like.
There you go.
Subscribe and like.
There you go.
You heard him.
And leave a
hit
comment
that like
for
button.
another movie that we should do.
Yes, that would be good. On that note, this is Movie Masterminds, and we'll see you later.